When installing a hydraulic throwout bearing, there's some critical measurements that you're going to need to take before you can get the assembly properly installed. The first thing that you want to do is get your bell housing and clutch assembly properly installed onto the motor. And then what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to measure the distance from the face of the bell housing down to the fingers of the pressure plate. Using your measurement tool, in this example I'm coming up with a measurement of approximately 2.53 inches. Next thing you want to do is take a measurement of your throwout bearing. In this case, we're looking at a McLeod throwout bearing, which is an adjustable unit, or you may also have a Tilton bearing, which is actually a fixed length bearing. What you need to make sure of is that when you measure the overall thickness of your bearing assembly, and with the McLeod unit, you want to make sure you fully compress it. Again, the Tilton's a fixed measurement. Measure the total overall thickness of the bearing assembly. In this case, we're looking at a measurement of about 2.42 inches. So the overall thickness of this bearing at 2.42 versus the overall depth from the face of the bell housing down to the fingers of the pressure plate, in this case, is 2.53 inches. You've got an initial setup height or an initial clearance of the difference between those two numbers, which in this case is 0.11 inches, which is about ideal. You really want to have anywhere between 0.1 to 0.25 inches of setup height for the McLeod unit. For the Tilton unit, you want 0.1 to 0.15 inches. If your bearing assembly is taller or longer than, in this case, that 2.53 inches, you're going to need a shorter piston in your McLeod bearing. Or in the case of the Tilton, you're going to need a shorter Tilton assembly. That said, if your gap from the bell housing to the fingers of the pressure plate is more than 0.15 inches thicker than the total thickness of your bearing assembly, you're going to need a longer piston assembly. So it's very important to check this measurement before going to install your hydraulic system.